The following is a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio. Keep your mission on your mind and your mind on your mission. This is Mission Minded with Michael Coleman.
Hey, welcome back to another Mission Minded. I love doing this show, man. It's Friday when we're recording this show on October 4th. Michael Coleman's the CEO of the Heart of Alabama Food Bank. He's not only one of our great sponsors and the great clients here, but also a very good friend of mine, and we break bread together. And he's one of those guys where you get around him and you just feel smarter just being around him. You know that guy? Michael, let me ask you this question. We'll start right there. Who is it that you've been around that actually makes you feel smarter? Because you're already up there, man.
Well, see, the thing is, I can be around guys and I can protect my image from all the stupid things I've done. I can hide all that, and I come across much smarter to you. But inside of myself, I know, man, you're not near as smart as you're coming across as. So it's a little bit of a shell game. But no, I have surrounded myself intentionally with people who have qualities that I admire in my life, and I ask a lot of questions. I embarrass my wife sometimes, but I told her, I can go into any environment, and this is not me. This is anybody can do this. Sometimes people have trouble with how to adapt to a group, and they get awkward, and I don't have enough to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, it helps, and I'm genuinely interested in a lot of things. But I can go into any group. And all I need is a little bit of information. Like if somebody says, okay, I'm in the airplane industry, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. And I'm like, oh, well, tell me about that. Tell me, or I have something in my life. I was like, oh, I have some buddies who have done that and they're fanatical. Is that the same effect? The bottom line is people love talking about themselves.
Yes, they do.
And so to get in, and you just want to do a lot of listening, you have to listen and ask probing questions. Now, my wife gets embarrassed because she's like, you're just sitting there grilling people. And I'm like, no, I'm genuinely interested.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm connecting these dots of like, I have a little bit of information. Oh, I can connect these two. And so I can go from talking about my views on UFOs and Bigfoot,
Mm-hmm.
and aliens,
Mm-hmm.
to we were talking the other day about something that the recent issues with Diddy, to others. I just hop around. I'm all over the place. And I guess maybe to some people I come across as smart. I got to be honest with you, though.
It's good to be
well-rounded. It's a lifetime of seeking and learning. But the things that I know, my wife said, if you could dump all the useless crap out of your head. So every sitcom that's had any life to it, I almost know it by heart, which I'm embarrassed to say how much I watch TV. My whole life, my whole understanding of classical music comes from Bugs Bunny cartoons when I was a child, the operas that he used to do.
Yeah.
She's like, if you could dump that useless crap, you could actually do something meaningful with your life. And there's some truth to that.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been told our entire lives, take the cotton out of our ears and stick it in our mouth. We need, and you're right. People will. It's so disconcerting sometimes when someone will actually say, "You do what now?" And they'll actually, because usually you throw a podcast or radio or something like that, and next thing you know, they want to know everything you're doing, and you actually start firing yourself up. You actually start taking a repassion. I almost feel like I'm getting in front of investors again, and I start explaining what I'm doing, and I start firing myself up. And I always tell my son, he's turning 20 here in a week, if you want a swimming pool and you want a big house when you grow up, know somebody with a swimming pool who has a big house. Those are the best ways. That way you don't have to clean the boat, you don't have to clean the pool, but you can use it whenever you want. Network yourself and know people that are rich. And that's a good thing to know, because if you're bringing something to the table, and everyone's got something to learn. So something that I think a lot of people think they're probably smarter than they actually are, and that is laborers in the United States. I saw some numbers here. I want to talk about strikes. Something is going on in this country that we've never seen in the workforce since we became a country. We had 33 strikes in 2023, and that goes all the way through this year. And by the way, breaking news. Have you gone out and bought toilet paper this week?
I have not.
Okay, so I've got a lot of toilet paper here because I got 3 kids that wipe their ass. They blow their nose and they stuff the toilet full of toilet paper with it just blowing their nose. So I've always got plenty of toilet paper. Right now, there's a shortage of toilet paper. And breaking news: the U.S. American Forest and Paper Association just came out this morning and said that our toilet paper, 85% of our toilet paper, is made here in the United States, which I didn't realize. 85% of our toilet paper is made right here in the United States, which means the port docks and all that stuff on the strikes has nothing to do with our toilet paper. We freak out. Remember COVID when they kept saying we're going to run out of red meat? People were buying. We ran out. I don't know if people know. We ran out of deep freezers in this country. Deep freezers. Because so many people were buying deep freezers because they needed deep freezers to put their meat in because we were going to run out of meat. And of course, meat made toilet paper and toilet paper made this, that, and we freak out and we go out and buy a ton of, it doesn't matter whether it's a snowstorm or a strike. We go out and buy milk. We go out and buy toilet paper. Those are the 2 things. And right now there's a toilet paper shortage in this country. And not knowing that 85% of that toilet paper has nothing to do with ships or boats. It's not coming from it's not coming from Taiwan. It's coming from right here in the United States. So stop buying toilet paper. And
It's a sad statement. It's a sad statement that, number one, we're that uninformed about, we don't know, even if we knew that it was produced locally, so many people would still freak out. They hear strike at a port, they aren't moving product, and they just panic. And what's really sad about the human condition is, it's like the hell with everybody else. I'm going to go get mine and I'm going to store up, and my family's not going to go without toilet paper. I couldn't give 2 cares whether your family has toilet paper or not. And that's a lot of the human condition. I'm going to look out after myself. And so we've really gotten a jam and we're having to depend on sharing food and all that. I just wonder what we'd really look like.
It'd probably look like it'd be like, it would look like one of those movies, where everyone's just stealing from each other and there's mass looting and that's what we have. We have that. I just came back from Clemson. I went out there this past week. 40% of North and South Carolina had no power. And I was walking back from the football game on Saturday night. I couldn't believe they had the game because the entire university was black. And so I'm walking, and I was walking with my son, and we're walking through a parking lot that was, man, you don't realize how dark it is in the world when it's nighttime and there's no power. I mean, it was dark. And I'm thinking to myself, and I think it was I don't know, it was a Von Maur or some type of department store. And I'm thinking to myself, man, there'd be nothing to loot the store right now. I mean, you could throw a brick through the window and no one would know about it because the entire city is dark. Thank goodness they weren't doing that. And of course they had a curfew. You couldn't stay out past 7 o'clock, but you just had people walking because there was no Uber, there's no Lyft, there was no cell phone reception. It was scary. So with all these major strikes, the activity has been up 280% in 2023 from the previous year. And I'm just going to go through some automakers, Hollywood writers, Boeing, railroads, the Port Authority, Anheuser-Busch, the dock workers. Those are just a tip of the iceberg. You only see about 10% of the iceberg. The 90% is underneath. It's costing us, or it was costing us $5 billion daily. Through the Port Authority, and now it appears that strike is now over. They got a 63% raise over the next 6 years, which is unbelievable. And that's the thing that we think these strikes, they go on strike and we get a new deal and it's done. Well, in 3 or 4 years, we're right back in the same spot. And I'm betting that the landscape of these businesses looks a hell of a lot different. What I don't like about what's happening right now with our labor unions is they're hitting when you're down. Boeing's going through a lot. I don't know what Boeing makes. I don't care. I know they make millions and billions of dollars. I know they work with our military, and so they could probably take a huge hit and be fine, and they do. Their 737s crash out of the sky. They're going to be around forever. But it does seem like the laborers are smart enough now to go, okay, and they did that with Hollywood. They knew they needed new scripts. They needed new shows as soon as possible because no one could work during COVID. And they're like, now's the time to hit them while they're down. And I understand you got to pick your spots and you got to do the right thing. They did that with the railroads. Anheuser-Busch is doing it right now. Anheuser-Busch is now the second leading beer distributor in the United States. They've been number 1 for 40 something years. They're number 2. They're getting their ass handed to them. And now they're striking because they're like, we've got them right where we want them. Fair or not, it's what's happening. It's what's working. And the first thing I think of is, okay, just because your company, and the oil companies are a big part of this too, just because your company, my company, you say I work for a company, it's making billions of dollars a year and I'm making $70,000 a year. If I feel like I deserve more based on what I do for that company, yeah, I can strike, or I can sit there and go in and demand more money. If I'm asking for more money just because my business I work for is killing it, I don't get that. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Anyone's available to go out and start a business and make all the money they want, and they can pay whoever they want, whatever they want. And if they don't like it, they can leave.
Yeah.
I like to be fair to all my workers. I like to pay. I'd love to be able to double the pay I give everyone that works for me, but unfortunately, I can't. But there is going to be a day when I'm going to start making more money and I'll be able to pay more people. And I think a lot of people think, well, these corporations are making all these billions of dollars, and so where's ours? Well, all of a sudden you don't go from 70 to $140,000 a year just because your business is making billions of dollars. It's got to be in that sweet spot of what is, because it's going to run out. It's going to bust. It's going to burst.
Yeah.
Um, So let me just ask you, and I've talked enough, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, because you are a smart man, and you've been through a lot of these things. And certainly your military upbringing has been a big part of that. But if you're a major corporation, and regardless of whether your workers are part of a labor union or not, what are we learning about our workforce right now? The fact that so many people are striking, and it appears that they've had them dead to rights. They got these corporations on their heels.
So I will go back and touch on several points that you have, because you really do, to understand this. And anytime I've studied labor unions and all that, and we just had this big push for labor unions down here in Alabama regarding all the car companies. So Alabama's kind of become the new Detroit of America. So, we have Honda, we have Hyundai, we have Mercedes, Mazda, Toyota plant, on and on and on, all the tier one plants that go with that. Kia is right across the border. It's owned by, so we do a lot of their business as well. So unions come down. So the idea is, of course, unions were needed at one time. Not saying they're not needed today. I'm gonna kind of present both sides so that, and then people draw their own conclusions as to which ones they think are right. It was back where you could lose your life. If you go back and look at like the Hoover Dam, how many people died hundreds of people died building the Hoover Dam. So when you say, oh, OSHA is a pain in the ass, absolutely it's a pain in the ass. But is it a needed pain in the ass? Well, some people would say not, because it costs companies money and they pass that cost along, on and on and on, and that bleeds into what they can pay their employees. And so there was a huge push. And of course, the chambers and all that are saying, no, we don't want unions, and they voted it down. And there's a big sigh of relief, but they keep coming back, and there's a push. So the perspective on a business is, if you just, and this is tied to politics, and I'm not talking about politics who supports unions, but just the language of our politics. How many times in the last 20 years have you heard a politician go big something? Big oil, big business, big insurance, big
government,
pharma, big,
Yep.
just on and on and on. So they create this image of all corporations are big, and they're flush with cash, and they are just making it off of your sweat and agony, and you're just making pennies, and you're going home while the fat cats sit in there and smoke Cuban cigars, that whole picture. And so what it does is it breaks into some of our most basic emotions of envy and resentment. Now, and what we quickly forget is, I may have been, you have guys that come along sometimes, have no college, have no experience. They get brought in on entry level, and then they work there over 20 years, and they've been able to make a good living. They've been able to get promoted within a company. They've been able to save money for retirement, whatever it is. And all that was made available because that company chose to take the risk of coming there. And of course, they have to make money. But you feel like, well, I got paid this. I started out at this, and I should have been paid more. And look at the cars they're producing, as if you're bringing some special skill. The truth of the matter is I've toured the Hyundai plant. Things are so automated. Nobody's out there welding parts, welding exhaust. It's all machine operated. And so you have people, even though they make you have a GED or a high school diploma, the truth of the matter is there's people out there that will do the same thing. Here's a seat. the machine brings the seat, sets it in there, you screw 4 bolts in, and you move on to the next car. You got a guy on the other side doing the passenger side doing the 4 bolts. And I'm not insulting the intelligence of manufacturing. We need manufacturing. It's provided a lot of good living. So at first, when manufacturing jobs came down in my hometown of Greenville, a couple of tier 1 plants pop up. Hey, great. We didn't have this before. So people are very thankful. Well, then you get to working there and it gets same old job, same old thing. And then somebody comes along and sows some seeds of discontent. And it really may not be against that company. It may be because maybe your life, maybe you haven't achieved what you wanted to achieve, or maybe, and so you know what? We try to make it somebody's fault. Well, you know what? You've given this company 10 years of your life, and what have they done? Well, one of the things they've done is they paid you every hour that you worked.
Yep.
For what you've agreed to work for. I mean, the beauty of America is if you have a gift or a talent, you can walk away and create your own job. You don't have to wait for somebody to give you a job. So from that perspective, if somebody goes, well, I haven't been given my fair share, in air quotes. Well, you went to the company and said, I need a job, I need benefits. And they said, okay, here's what we can offer you. And you chose to accept that or not accept it. Now, if there was not a market for that, so let's say they said, we're going to pay you $20 an hour plus benefits. And if you go, that's not enough. Well, if the market dictates that they can get people and pay them $20 a month, they will.
Sure.
Well, what a union does, it comes in and goes, hey, you deserve more, you need more. So they want to force, because they said, look, these fat cats and all that kind of stuff. So they're like, you're being taken advantage of. And then you feel victimized rather than being thankful for what you have. Then you get resentful over your job. And then it goes on day after day. Yeah, we're not being treated right. And then you start, it just creates all this dissension. And so that's part of some of the underlying problems from the worker side. You go from, hey, I'm thankful I have this job, to I hate this job, I'm victimized. Because when we don't progress in life, it's few people that look back and go, you know what? I had an opportunity here. I didn't take that choice. I had an opportunity to go for this training. I didn't take it. I had this. I didn't want to do it. And so I ended up where I am because of the choice, primarily because of the choice. I'm not saying there's not injustices out there, but primarily based on what I was willing to do with my life. I am where I am based on what I've chosen to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so every choice, good and bad, brings with it consequences. The problem is we don't like to assess ourselves and say, I deserve whatever I'm getting, good or bad, because I made these choices. And it's easier if we go, no, I'm here, I deserve more. It's the other guy's fault. He's keeping me down. And so I'm a victim, and I'm not going to be a victim anymore. And so the labor unions come in and say, yeah, I can get you more wages. Of course, what are you doing? You're paying union dues. Not to even get into the long historical corruption that's found in labor unions, where payoffs happen. We're so-called representing the people, and lots of times they're not. They're representing their own interests, their power positions. They use that for their own benefit. Now, let me say this to be a little critical of the other side. There are businesses who do take advantage. And let me say this. When you become a publicly traded company, and so really you have a CEO, you'll have a board, but people invest in your company, that stock, and that money goes for new equipment and new redesign and research and development and all that kind of stuff. And so they're going to invest in your company because the market has determined let's say it's worth $50 a share. And so if you're expected to have a dividend of X amount of dollars, you have to have a lot of profit to go out to your shareholders, so that your company is able to maintain, so that you're able to continue to give people jobs. However, having said that, there are many companies, private and public, over the years that have said, no, not what's in the best interest of my employees, but what can I get away with? And so
Yeah.
it creates a distrust. So the unions, and rightly so in many cases, go, we don't trust corporate because they're going to get as cheap a labor as they can. And you go, yeah. And so we have to unionize to fight and break through that, because one or two guys can't break that, but a whole company walking out can, like you see at the port.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know the ins and outs of the port, but if I were the port, I would have said, or let's just say the port represents all companies or whatever.
Mhm.
And you go, okay, here, they are asking for X. Let's
Yep.
say it's a 10% increase over the next 3 years. So it's a total of 30% increase. And you go, well, I think we can get them down to 3% for a year, or 5% for a year. And so you go all that, and then you're like, and then it gets about, well, I'm not going to share power. I'm not going to give you your way. It becomes I won't say when two men are measuring things,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, about
Yeah. Mhm.
it's just about, hey, I'm going to get my way and I'm going to prove to you. And so it gets personal and all those things get into it. And so you don't make, so let's say you hammer it out and you come to an 8% agreement, but there's resentful, there's mistrust. Both people feel like the other side's screwing them. And so now you've got this conflict and this pressure between management and the workers. So you said in this case it was 63%. Okay,
Mhm.
so however they came up with it. Let's say their top end was we can't go higher than 65%. So I don't know what they were arguing with before.
They offered
But-
him 50, but they end up getting 60 or 63,
Okay, so they're offering them
which is
50.
crazy. I mean,
Well, if they offered them 50, it could indicate that they recognize maybe these people have been underpaid, because lots of times people work on ships, they're away from their family, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And with the market and the way we are today, maybe they say, hey, I'm doing a tough job. Okay. My point is that if a company goes, we can financially still be very viable and healthy as a company and do let's say 65% increase. Wouldn't it have been much better if a year ago they would have come to them and said, hey, we recognize, we really value you. We're going to go ahead and give you unsolicited a 25% increase.
Yeah, that'd be great. In a perfect
Okay.
world. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's this at now?
Yeah, exactly. And so,
And
first of all,
what would the unions do then? They'd go, great. If their offer is 25, we can give 45.
yeah, now that's true. Union leadership was, but here's the thing. If union leadership, if you're only hearing their message, but if they come out and say, hey, we just value, we want to give you, whether it's a bonus, whether it's whatever, unsolicited, you at least on some level can start to build goodwill.
Yep.
The reason also companies add to the mistrust, because it's just what you said. It's like, we know we got you over a barrel. So they knew every day the pressure was going to build, people's goods and everything else. So they caved to 63%. So they knew they had them over a barrel, so they took advantage of it. Because they don't give a crap about the company, because they don't believe the company's numbers. Companies are historically lack transparency.
Mhm.
And so they'll put out a set of numbers and says, here, we're showing you our finances. We're showing you what we can afford. And many times the unions go, that's bull crap. We know that and so they're lying and they're feeding into the dishonesty. And I get it. You want to have your cards close to the vest. But inevitably, you've got two sides that don't trust each other, that are both trying to get what they want. It's all about the dollars. And it ends up in an explosion like that. And who's going to be the first one to cave? Now, the workers back in the day tried to do that under Reagan with air traffic control. And Reagan says, I'm firing every one of you, because that was a national safety thing.
Sure.
I mean, if you had a president who intervened, or let's say a transportation secretary, whoever, and said, we can't have our dock shut down, I'm going to get involved in this. Come here, corporate leader. Come here, union leader. And I get the president can't get in all these, but what I'm saying is it takes leadership. And what you have is you've got two entities fighting for whatever they can get. And you have stories of both things being the result. So you have stories of unionized workers driving car plants to extinction. Like, I think there's some in Ohio and Michigan that they closed the doors, and now they were employing 1,000 people. And they said, it no longer makes economic sense. We're doing with a new car line. We're going to take it over here to this place. So these people go, wait a minute, you're closing down the plant? And now you don't have any job.
Yeah.
And yet, but they continue to hate the employer as if it's an employer's responsibility to give you a job. And they're like, if you keep pushing us at this, and this, that's the risk that you run.
Have you ever seen a business that was pushed to the brink from a union that ended up having to close its doors because it was bludgeoned too much by its workers?
Well, I'll give you a current thing. It was out in California. So you had people who own fast food restaurants, and they just think, oh, well, they're millionaires or whatever. Well, they made the minimum wage $20 an hour. And a lot of fast food restaurant owners just shut it down.
Yeah.
They just closed. They just closed the door. And now those people get to go somewhere else. So it's always the tendency, because you're against big business. And big business is screwing you until you walk up the door and you're like, wait a minute, why is the door locked? And they're like, well, I try to tell you, I can't afford $20 an hour for you to make fries.
Yeah.
So that's the downside. But so it does backfire on workers sometimes. But it does backfire on businesses too, because if you think about this, businesses go to the mat sometimes, and knowing that when they're healthy, like if a business was totally transparent and they said, okay, here's our culture. And you see this a lot in private business. Okay. We're stepping outside of the unions for just a second. Private business goes, when I do well as the business owner, my employees are going to do well. So he lays it all out and says, hey, our company grew 25% this year, and they recognize the employees because their hard work, their productivity, whatever. So I'm going to take X amount of dollars and I'm going to give you an unplanned bonus or give you stock into the company, whatever it is, ownership of the company. And the employees feel, wow, I really appreciate that. When you get to bigger corporations like Meta and, your car dealers, and you don't have that same vibe. And that's where lots of times they come in and want to take that, because with public corporations, like I said, they have stakeholders, they have board of directors, they have all this. But here's another example of the mistrust. So Boeing, I just saw this video clip last week. Boeing goes and testifies in front of a Senate committee. Boeing CEO. He says, can you tell us how much you make? And he said, it's a lot of money, it's substantial. And he goes, well, can you share with us? He goes, Senator, it's a big number. And so the senator goes, like $32.8 million a year, big money? And he goes, yes. He said, that's right. And he said, okay, so you make 32.8, which is a 45% increase on what you made last year. Okay. He said, that's correct. And he goes, and yet you're under X amount of investigations for fraud and all that, right? Called out his whole record, like the company and the planes have been going with quality and all that. And so here's a guy coming to work and he's saying, man, I need $10 more an hour. And this guy, who's, at least by the evidence, is not doing a great job running the company, and it's something built in his contract. You got enough money to throw him individually, $20 more million, and you're busting my chops. You're saying you can't give me $5 more an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
So that feeds right into the narrative. But so what that claim about corporations and mistrust, the fact is it's true in a lot of cases. They call these golden parachute retirements. I mean, Elon Musk is a whole different character. He was trying to get this $46 billion retirement plan or whatever. I'm like, he may be worth it. He may be the only one who's worth it of what he's created, what he's done. But you see where strikes come about. It comes about from mistrust, from employees saying they don't appreciate me, they don't value me. And so let's rally together and let's use our muscle. Businesses are like, we're not going to share our true profit with them. We're going to give them, but then they go, because if we give them to the danger that we give them much, then they're going to think, oh, well, if they're willing to give us this is what they're holding back.
Yeah.
And it just goes on and on and on until it blows up. It becomes national attention. And they end up hating each other, but they can settle it for X amount of years until this next thing. And that's just the state of relations.
The truth
So
matters.
businesses that, like in Alabama, don't want unions to come.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying that unions are the sole problem. Businesses and corporations have contributed to the mistrust, have abused employees. So I just really admire business owners and their CEOs too that go, hey, I get we've got these responsibilities. Our company has grown because you come to work every day and you do, and I'm going to recognize you.
Yeah, and to your
those
point,
are the healthy environments.
And to your point, that is actually happening. And I can't recall the business. It was another union business where they're not striking, but the businesses came out and said, listen, we don't want to go down this road. And they basically told them, listen, we don't want to go down this road, so we're going to go ahead and give you a 10% increase right now. You're not even asking for it, and it sufficed. It was enough to get it done. Great stuff, man. And it's not going away. I don't know where it goes from here because, eventually the money runs out, but until it does, we're going to continue to have strikes. 33 strikes on the books as we speak right now, but it looks like the Port Authority. Go buy yourself some toilet paper. And thanks for listening to Missing Minded.
Absolutely. Thank you.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.